Hi, my name is Tushar Jain and I help students like you ace their MBA interviews. Welcome to this session of Economics in 10 minutes where we plan to take a concept of economics, study the theory behind it and also see the practical implications of that concept, all with the perspective of clearing your GDs and PIs. So the concept of today is types of economic systems, and we'll be covering what is capitalism, socialism, and communism. Now, before we start with the intricacies of these three systems, let's understand what an economic system is. This is largely a definition of the economic system. Let's park it for the moment, but let's understand what are the constituents of an economic system. So economic system consists of production, it consists of consumption, and it consists of the market. So you produce something, you consume something, and it's the market through which you consume. Okay. Now, what an economic system says is that its economic system is a way in which a nation or state allocates its resources for the economic benefit of the citizens. So how you are allocating your resources so that the economic benefit of the citizens happen. Now let's first understand what is this allocation of resources, or rather what are resources. So if you want to produce something, you need factors of productions. In short, you need land, you need money, and you need labor to produce something. Once you have produced something, you put that thing in the market, so which is nothing but your supply. And once you produce something, again you need to pay wages to your labor, okay, which then goes to the market and consumes it. So this is nothing but your demand supply. So this is what an economic system is, how you control these factors of production, how you control this supply, and how you control this demand. Now there can be three systems as we discussed: capitalism, socialism, and communism. Let's understand what is capitalism. Now there will be few points which I'll be throwing on the screen so you can read them at your leisure. But from a broad perspective, this is what capitalism is. In the previous slide, we have seen that we have production, we have consumption, and we have a market here. So capitalism says that all your factors of production, which is land, labor, and capital, it is controlled by private individuals or organizations or corporations. Okay, and they are working in their self-interest. They are independent to take economic decisions. Government won't interfere in their economic decisions until and unless they are going against the law. So capitalism says that it's the market which defines what is good, what is bad for you. Okay, so based on that, you take your economic decisions. You are in complete control of your production, you are in complete control of your supply, you are in complete control of how to generate demand. These are some of the points. So the basis of capitalism is laissez-faire. I'm sure you would have heard this word a lot of times. So laissez-faire says let it be, or in other terms, let the market decide what is good. I'm not going to say anything, let the market decide. Now there are, okay, before I proceed further, capitalism is purely based on demand and supply. So when we say that market decides, it's nothing but market decides the demand and decides the supply, and demand and supply theory comes into picture, which we will cover in the next session. Okay. What are the benefits of capitalism? Now, as we discussed prior to this, so capitalism is based on competition. So you are free to produce anything just as you are free. The other individuals and other corporations are free to produce. So there is competition in the market, and that's how the consumers get a lot of choice. Capitalism rewards your positive traits like hard work. So if you can sense an opportunity and you are working hard towards it, capitalism says that you are good to go. You can take an economic decision and work in your favor. So it rewards these traits. At the same time, if you are lazy, if you are not willing to work, you will be punished. Another thing is that capitalism is always built on democracy because in a way democracy is a medium through which the effects of capitalism can flow. And what are the negatives of capitalism? Capitalism, again, as we said, capitalism is based on self-interest. You do something which is in your interest. The problem is when that self-interest turns into selfish interests. What happens then? Ethics are degraded. Downfall of ethics happen, due to which you may be exploiting, the capitalist can exploit their labor, they can exploit their they can exploit the environment, they can exploit the ecology, and that's when the problem with capitalism starts. If we talk about a country, an example of capitalism, I think USA is the best example. So there's an old saying which says USA is built on hard work. This hard work is nothing but capitalism. What is communism? Just like in capitalism, we see that there are three factors of production, which is land, labor, and capital. So in capitalism, this was controlled by an individual. In communism, this is controlled by the government. So communism is exactly opposite to capitalism, and communism says that it is the government which knows what is best for its citizens. So government will control the factors of production and government will allocate the resources accordingly. The entire idea is, if you would have seen the old Hindi movies, you would have seen a Lalaji or a Sethji who used to exploit his laborers. That was the problem of capitalism, and that's why communism came into picture to save those working class, save those laborers. Okay, and the entire idea of communism is that we will reduce this distinction between what we say the capitalist class and the working class, and we'll make everything equal. Now let's understand what are the disadvantages or what are the benefits of communism. Since we say that government owns everything, government decides everything, so government, the idea of communism is that government will work towards elimination of poverty, towards survival for all, and it will ensure that its economic decisions do not exploit anyone. So that's the logic behind communism. However, the negatives of communism are actually the benefits. So these benefits are good to hear in theory, but they can't be implemented in practicality because in communism there is too much control. Everything is controlled by government, and that control is given to a small group of people who are in power. So they decide everything. And what happens when a lot of power happens with a very small group? Corruption comes into picture. And that is when communism starts negatively affecting the economy. A good example of communism is China, Cuba, North Korea, where the government decides everything. Now let's discuss the middle path between capitalism and communism, and socialism stands there. So the crux of socialism is that the factors of labor, factors of production, again land, labor, capital, it would be partly owned by the government and partly owned by the individual or the corporations. So government owns the monopolies and the private individual is can take up anything which is not a monopoly. So socialism says that as an economy or as a decision making unit, we'll take the decisions which are best for the society. So let's take those decisions. Here is the formal definition of socialism. So socialism doesn't mean that your decisions are taken by consensus or majority. It's just that people who have been chosen, who are at the center of power, they take decisions on behalf of the collective group. Again, the logic is that let's serve the society. Let's do what's best for the society, but let's not be in a totally commanding position. Let individuals have a fair play, but at the same time, monopolies shouldn't exploit the citizens. So if we talk about the benefits, again, it's largely socialism and communism have the same mindset that we want to eliminate poverty, we want to give a stable environment, let there be a survival for all. The important thing is that socialism also says that since we are working for the larger good, we can also take economic activities which are not actually productive. So for example, it's better to import a tractor than manufacture it in India. But as a government, as a socialist government, I'll say, okay, since I am an agrarian economy, let's start producing tractors. I'll give you subsidies. Okay, I'll give the industry a subsidy, so please produce it. So in a socialist setup, this non-economic sectors grow. However, if you are in a capitalist system, it won't grow because you are building a tractor, you are manufacturing a tractor at, let's say, 100 rupees while an import costs 50 rupees. So market will automatically go for that imported product, not your product. So if you are a socialist economy, that type of things can happen. What are the negatives? Again, if when we work in a socialist society where the government is taking economic decisions which benefit all, so you have a reduced incentive to work. The entire economy grows slowly, and there is always distorted pricing because there are always subsidies and benefits in the system. Again, the perfect example of socialism is India before 1991 and to an extent Russia. Now let's compare the three systems. So the theory is all done. I hope I am able to cover it in 10 minutes, but let's put our learning into practice. So if we have to compare the three systems, what would be the common ground? The common ground would be who takes the economic decisions in these three systems. Now this diagram will give you a better picture. When we talk about capitalism, the government takes very limited economic decisions, while largely it's the private sector which is taking the decisions. If we talk about communism, it's the opposite. The government is taking the majority of the decisions, economic decisions, while private sector is just left with the few things. And when it comes to socialism, it's a mix of two. So government takes decisions which is related to monopolies, which is related to important sectors, which the government thinks is critical for the economy, and all other sectors, the private individual or the private sector can take decisions. Now let's discuss. I have a food. Okay, before going forward, so which economic system is good? In theory, all these three systems are good. But if we talk about practical examples of today, I think capitalism is the best one because it actually helps you grow. The other two systems have, so I would say of all the three systems, the all three are bad, but yes, the socialism and communism are worse. Capitalism is less bad if done in a controlled manner. Now here's some food for thought, and let's see how we can put our learning into practice. The first example, you must have heard that China is almost 5 to 6 times bigger than us. Still, people consider India to be more stable. Why is it so? The reason is that China is a communist economy where the government decides everything. If government decides something to some if government has a negative implication for private sector tomorrow, then you have to abide by it. Whereas in a country like India where it's a democracy and it's a socialism, a government can still take a bad decision, but that decision can be challenged in the court of law. That things are not too easy in a communist country where everything is controlled by government. The next question, what happened in India before 1991? Or if I have to rephrase it, what was license Raj? Why it came into picture? So I gave you an example of tractors. Okay, extending that the same example further, the government decides that okay, we will be producing tractors in-house, and over the years government saw that the demand for tractors is increasing. But since government controls all those monopolies, government started giving licenses to people. So government said that okay, even though there is a demand of, let's say, 50 tractors, we will manufacture only 25 tractors because we as an economy want to invest only in that much of the resources. The other resources we will invest somewhere else. So that's why licenses were given and everything was controlled. Your production was controlled. It was not market linked. And that's how license Raj came into picture, and finally corruption came into picture. What's the role of planning commission? I think there was a point written in the socialism related slide that the tenet of socialism is that we go for a central planning. So planning happens in India. Planning used to happen once in 5 years, and it was a central planning. It has been now replaced by Niti Aayog. And do you think SBI and Air India were government enterprises right from the very start? Actually, they were not. Air India was in fact owned by the Tatas. So when we got our independence and when we when we finally agreed that we are going the socialism way, Air India was actually a monopoly and government took over Air India so that Air India can't exploit the citizens in terms of, let's say, humongous pricing. And that's how by the downfall of Air India started happening. In a capitalist economy, what's the role of regulators? RBI, TRAI, DGCA, Competition Corporation of India, these are nothing but regulators. So in an open market, in a free market where you are operating, the capitalism says that the role of government is not business. The role of government is to facilitate business. And these regulators are nothing but they are facilitators of business. They ensure that no one is taking the system for granted and that all the laws are followed. So in a capitalist environment, you need these regulators, and that's why we have so many regulators in our economy. And the last thing is, have you ever thought why IT is such a big sector in India? I mean, there are a lot of other big sectors as well, but the growth of IT has been phenomenal. What's the reason? The reason is that the likes of Infosys, TCS, Wipro, Paro, etc., they happened when we were a socialist country, and the demand for IT services was largely from outside. It was not an internal demand. So government said that, okay, let these sectors operate. They are not of prime importance to me. I'll focus on the core sectors like manufacturing, like textile, like let's say cement, automobile. But I'm not going to focus so much on a sector which is irrelevant. So in a way, these companies got capitalistic sort of environment where they were not totally controlled by the government, and that's the reason why they grew so stupendously. Now this was all I had in this session. We have a, so if you are interested to buy the complete course where we have almost 20 to 25 similar sessions, feel free to send me a WhatsApp or call me on this number to explore more about this course, or you can also send me an email on this and I'll be glad to answer your questions around this course. I hope you learned a new concept today and I look forward to seeing you in the next session. Thank you.